into like closets or stuff like that, but he would have like 3 doors or 3 entrances. Oops. Over here, no one knows for sure what the flat is going to kind of look at. Flat being an apartment, but this would be, pretty close to how it would be matched up. Where this is going to be Gregor's bedroom, so you would have Gregor and Greta pretty much right next to one another. Then probably the living room and parents may be over here. So if you were Gregor, you would have 3 access points that would be able to get into his room. Greta on one side, hallway, corridor, on the other, and then probably the living room. So if you are a person who's craving privacy, this probably is not the room, the setup that you're going to want, since you have all of those access points to it. If you oversleep with your alarm, I don't know why we're doing that. If you oversleep with your alarm, what's going to happen?
Everyone's going to come in and
They potentially could come in, all the time, but they certainly have the ability to kind of knock on his doors at all times. So starting on page 6 and page 7 is where we kind of get a setup for this. He ultimately does have 3 doors. Let's see. There we go. Now we're working. So he has 3 doors. One of the details that gets mentioned within page 7 is what does he do with all 3 of those doors? He keeps them locked. Why would you want to have those things locked? Certainly so that you can have at least some kind of ability of privacy. So on page 6, and so this was the one where we had the boss's minion and all of that kind of stuff. At the bottom of page 6 is when you start to have his mother is knocking on his door. Mother ends up being the first attempt to wake him. And this knock ends up kind of being like a little bit more of a gentle knock, just calling to see if he would get up or not. But page 6 at the bottom, and on that second column, is where Mother is starting to knock on the door to try to wake him up. The next 2 are going to kind of go with setup of the room and then the attempts to wake him. So the very first attempt is certainly going to be coming from his mother. When you turn the page and we get over here to page 7, then you have the second attempt, which is starting to take place, where it is Gregor, what's going on? Gregor, wake up. This is where now you are starting to get the father who is trying to wake him up. So he is calling what's going on. Father is the second attempt, and in comparison to the mother, the father is going to be much more assertive or aggressive in trying to get him to wake up. And then our last one that we have is going to be when his sister is going to be the third attempt to wake him up with Greta. Down here, Gregor had no intention of opening the door, but he congratulates himself on his precaution acquired from traveling of locking all the doors at night, even when he is at home. So this is the thing that kind of prevents people from being able to get in, that we know he locks his doors. Might not seem like a big deal that he locks his doors. But we've already talked about, especially when it came to the picture frame, and I think all of us tend to lock our doors, certainly a good bit. But when we talk about the picture frame and all that kind of stuff that he has up here, unknown, that he doesn't know the person, but it seems to be important to him. One of the things that he doesn't like about his job is the lack of human relationships. If you're going to kind of compare it symbolically, what does he do with his doors? He keeps them all locked. He basically is locking people out of his room, was going to be the direct answer, but out of his life. So 3 doors, 3 entrance points, and then down here with the attempts to waken Gregor, I think it's good to keep in mind the order. Number 1 is going to be his mother, who's going to do it in a more gentle manner of trying to wake him up. Number 2 is his father, who seems to be a little bit more angry, assertive about it. And then the third attempt is going to be Greta. Greta, when she's waking him up, seems to be a little bit more of a plea for him to get up, because there seems to be some concern that is starting to take up at this place. But certainly this idea about him maybe locking people out of his life, again, if you're dealing with a person who's feeling less human, that is certainly going to have some symbolic significance to it. So within the book part that you have on page 7 where it mentions the locked doors, I would certainly underneath it put symbolic value of shutting people out of his life. All right? And this type of setup, this type of flat would be pretty typical for like a European home. It's going to be pretty small. It's very compartmentalized. And in a lot of those places, you do have like multiple access points going from one room. If you want to get to one room, you might have to go through 2 others and all of that kind of stuff. So it's not that this would be a weird setup for a place, but it's one that would tend to be pretty typical for how a European setup would be. Anyone recall what the weather's like? It is raining. So page 3 lets us know right off the bat that it's raining. And then page 9, we get one other detail that kind of comes along with rain. It's rainy, and if it's misty, we don't know the temperature quite yet, but if it's rainy and misty, you could have a hard time seeing because it tends to be very foggy. And within the text, page 3, that first page has the rain getting mentioned right away. Page 9 has the fog in the first column, where it was already 7 o'clock, he told himself, with the latest striking of the alarm clock, already 7 o'clock, and still such a fog. And this is down here on page 9. Rainy and fogged. Katie said that's when the bugs come out.
Yeah, that's
I would say the bugs always come out.
Yeah, always, but like you see the you tend to see more of them at like whenever it's like just crappy weather and just like like it's just all like gloomy and stuff. And like,
Problem for me, if it's foggy, I can't see anything.
if you're looking down.
One of the questions that always tends to happen with Gregor's Metamorphosis is going to be: is it real? So you don't need to write this part down. Is it real so far as him kind of changing into a bug? Gut reaction, no, it's probably not. It's probably more mental that would be going on for him. However, if it's raining and it's foggy and you can't really see things clearly, you tend to have a little bit more of a dream-like environment. And so that weather, I think, does kind of add to the potential of it maybe being a little bit more dream-ish happening. There's going to be some details that are going to be coming up in part 2 that's going to kind of add to it with the fog and Gregor's eyesight and what he's able to see. But if things are foggy, it's hard to perceive, it's hard to see. If you can't perceive what's happening, you could have a difficult time perceiving the truth. And those are certainly a lot of the things that are going to get mentioned within the course of the story as to how Gregor continues to change over and over and over again. It's morning. So he initially needs to get up early. Normally he'd be getting up at like 4 o'clock. And so when he wakes up and he's gone through the alarm, they're pounding on the door for him to get up and go to work. And a lot of people were mentioning this on their quiz from yesterday. This is the very first time that he has done what in regards to work? This is the very first time that he has missed work in, you remember how long? In 5 years. It was 5 years. So he's been working at this company for 5 years. He plans on working at it for another 5 or 6 years so he can finish paying off the parents' debt, but he has not missed a day of work in 5 years. And when he misses his very first day, the boss is showing up. So Josh has perfect attendance, kindergarten through 6th grade, 5th grade, misses one day, principal's at the house, Josh, why are you at school? It's the first day I've missed in 5 or 6 years. You would think that it's not going to be it might be a significant deal that, hey, we're used to seeing you all the time. What happened the next day? you wouldn't expect that it would be something where someone is going to come and find you and see you and look out for you. Why aren't you here? You would expect that if a person is habitually missing days, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days in a row, that's when someone is going to come and see him. But it is the first time that he has missed a day, first time missing work in 5 years. And this is already causing the manager to come out and see him. Manager ends up appearing. Manager shows up on, I believe it is page 11 when he first appears. Yeah, top of page 11 is when the manager first begins to show up. So this is when now we start to have a little bit of conflict happening. And he's certainly nervous that the manager or someone is going to be wondering what's going to be going on. But first time he's missed work in those 5 years, now the manager is coming in to find out what is going on. So he only needed to hear the visitor's first word of greeting to recognize immediately who it was. It's the manager himself coming to the door. So boss, and again, we're down here on page 11. Boss makes a home visit for missing 1 day of work. And it's not even at this point that he's missed a day, but it's at this point that he is late for 1 day. Does not happen to get on the train. Now there's already folks coming to his place looking for him.
What does that say?
Boss makes a home visit for missing 1 day of work. Now, since the boss is there, parents are going to be getting a little bit more concerned, a little bit more upset. Father is now saying, Mr. Manager has come and asking why you have not left on the early train. We don't know what we should tell him. We want to speak to you personally. So you certainly have a little bit more pleading that kind of starts to take place, and the father's being a little bit more assertive. On page 13, we do get another little detail. Mother is defending him. On page 13, though, she talks about, for instance, he cut out a small frame over a course of 2 or 3 evenings. You'd be amazed how pretty it is. This is the frame for the picture of the woman. So, frame for the picture of the woman. This lets us know that it's going to be of great importance to him, since it's something that he certainly handscraft that we were kind of talking a little bit about yesterday. One of the things that the manager starts to then mention here on 12 is the seriousness of some issues, where he says his commercial duties, in truly unheard of manner, are being neglected. So that not only are you not showing up for work, but I'm going to tell you that also I think that you are not doing a very good job at work. And another detail that gets included, the chief has indicated to him earlier that there's a possible explanation for his negligence. It concerns some collection of money that is missing. So there is an accusation that Gregor stole money from the company. So there is absolutely no concern that is taking place over why aren't you coming out? Why do you sound a little different? Why are you missing work? But now people are basically pretty much piling on top of him as to why aren't you here? And by the way, we also think that you ended up taking some money, taking some cash from him. So page 13, 14 now is having these details about work. And remember, he doesn't like work, feels like he is the boss's minion, that he is being manipulated, and now you're having these details that are coming in. So pages 13 and 14 for the manager's visit, accuses him of poor work, and stealing money, or at least being irresponsible for it. Accusation of poor work and stealing money. For the accusation, we don't know. there's nothing about Gregor from, I mean, again, we know so little about him. There's nothing about him that would make it seem like he's the person who's going to steal money, or that would be the type of person who he is. He is working. He's living at home. He's working for his parents to try to make up debt. Maybe that would be a reason to steal money, but there's nothing about him that seems to be dishonest. It pretty much seems that he is the person who can get picked on, or who can be manipulated, or who can be used because he's going to be too weak or too timid to fight back. So he can get piled on so far as all these responsibilities because Gregor's the person who's going to take it. He's not going to be the one who's going to cause a fight about it. Now, again, keep in mind, fictional story, so you can kind of manipulate those things a little bit as you want. But I think it really kind of goes back to emphasizing this idea that he would be one who feels like a bug, that he's the boss's minion, that they basically do with him as they please. We can accuse him of, stealing money, and it's not something that he's going to try to end up suing us or fighting back or anything like that. One of the other questions, and we don't again know, if mother and father owe so much money, why doesn't mother or father have a job? And we don't have an answer for that one yet. So not only does it seem that you got little Gregor here as being a bug, you have work is putting pressure on him. Father's pounding on the door all the time to try to get him up for work. So why are people kind of using him for their own personal benefit? And, those diary entries that we took a look at the other day with Kafka, we know that Kafka certainly has a tough relationship with his father where he feels like father's being a little overbearing. It kind of makes it seem as if he's setting this up that, hey, I feel like I'm not even being treated, like a human. You're not decent enough to treat me as a human. Okay, do you want to put it away, please? Thank you. And one thing to also, and I don't know if this is purposeful or not, you take a look at Kafka, author's name. What's Gregor's last name? Katie, you with us?
Yes.
What's Gregor's last name? Samsa. What do you notice about the spelling of the names? Same amount of letters.
Spelled like backwards.
You got the vowels lining up. The other letters do not align, but notice you got repetition of K, K, and you have repetition of S, S in the same locations, numbers 1 and number 4 within it. So there at least seems to be parallels, between that character Gregor as to how he feels and maybe what Franz would be going through.
How old is Gregor in the story?
We don't get a specific age for him. The only thing that we know is he's a couple things we would know about him. Before he worked, he would have been in the military because there is the picture of him in uniform that's in the kitchen parlor area. He's been working for 5 years, so that, assuming that he's, say, in the military like 18 to 21, 22, is probably like 26 or 27. At this point, when Kafka's writing the story, he would have been 29.
Okay, I just wanted to know because his parents might be too old for once we retire.
So far as why they would not be working.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, and that's certainly, again, something where we don't have a whole lot of details. The one thing, and we know that she's a younger sister. We don't know how old Greta, specifically is at this point. Now, there are going to be some details that kind of start to pop up in parts 2 and 3, which give us a little bit more insight into, okay, what could they be doing or what could they not be doing in order to supplement the money. But you're right. If he's a 35-year-old and his parents are, 68, 69, 70, it's certainly going to be tough for a father to go to the construction site and be earning income and all that kind of stuff with it. So those are details that we don't really have, know a whole lot about at this point. But going back to like the original thing, it seems as if folks are just kind of piling on one thing after another on top of Gregor because what's he going to do? And the answer is going to be pretty much nothing. And if you try to do something, if it feels like a bug, every time you see one of those little thousand langers, you do that.
I look at it first.
It could be my daughter and just like scream. Which kind of bug?
All of them.
drains.
I never get stink bugs. I never ever.
We had ladybugs a couple years ago.
Never had a problem.
Ladybugs. It was like one summer. We had a whole bunch of ladybugs. We also had that, so we re-insulated. Take a look here at page 1516. Taking a look over here at this part. Manager is still there. He says how he's going to be opening the door immediately. I'm going to try to come out. I just have a little slight indisposition, which is kind of getting him in my way. I turned into a bug. So he starts speaking. Manager and parents, did you understand a single word? The manager asked the parents. Is he playing the fool with us? So he's speaking, but they don't understand what he's saying. For God's sake, cried the mother, already in tears. Perhaps he's very ill and we're upsetting him. Greta, she yelled at that point. Mother, called the sister from the other side. They were making themselves understood through Gregor's room. You must go to the doctor right away. So mother wants to get the doctor to find out if something's wrong with him. Gregor is sick. Hurry to the doctor. Have you heard Gregor speak yet? That was an animal's voice, said the manager, remarkably quiet in comparison to the mother's cries. Two things going on. Number one, who is concerned about Gregor's well-being or seems to be most concerned? Mother is most concerned. So mother seems to be the most concerned, I would say, about his health. Again, we're looking here at page 16. So health ends up being a primary concern there. Down here, at the bottom of 16, manager makes reference to what his voice sounds like. Voice, he equates to that of an animal. How does an animal sound? What does that mean? Moo. Maybe you could have growl, chirp, some type of, bark might be a sound. Max is letting us know about a moo. But it's going to basically be, non-human sound, so it's going to be more of a sound as opposed to words. So they're not hearing words coming from him, maybe grunts, a chirp, a squeak, something along those lines. Now, he's in his room, so doors are locked. How thick are these doors and all that kind of stuff, who knows? So there could be some interference that would be not allowing it to happen. But there certainly appears to be some kind of separation between him and them, not only a physical separation with the door, but something so far as that inability to communicate. So on that note sheet, and again, we're here on page 16, which we want to keep an eye on our page numbers. Page 16 is his attempt to communicate, or at least one of them. The manager makes reference to his voice sounding like an animal. No. Because he is certainly having dialogue, we know what he is trying to say starting with page 12 when the manager shows up, but that's the first time that we get a response from another person as to something doesn't quite seem right so far with the sound. So it doesn't go that there's like a muffled sound, it doesn't say that there's anything like clattering, it doesn't even say indistinguishable words, but this is going that this sounds like an animal.
So he must be able to talk to other animals.
Well, we don't have any other animals yet, but maybe. Other possibility, if this has not actually happened, but psychologically he is not, really in kind of human form anymore, it simply just could be noises that are now kind of coming out of him. And on Monday, I'll show you, I mentioned they did a stage production of this. They've done several. I'll show you an interpretation from a stage as to how the metamorphosis takes place. They do not have him turning into a bug, but they certainly have him going through a transformation that if that person were to come out of the bedroom, you would be a little alarmed at the state that your son, your brother would kind of be in at that point. So we don't know what is that transformation that has occurred, but again, you have a characteristic that does seem to be at the very least non-human. And then that cherry on the top for that, and I'm gonna skip the physical qualities about Gregor for now, but when the family actually sees him, this is when things really start to go from bad to worse, because the door does get open where he is able to turn the key with his mouth when he's able to come out, and now you have people who are really becoming upset. What are some things that family members or the manager actually do when they see Gregor? Mom faints. So you're worried about your son, health-wise, and he finally does show up, and you see him, and it's not, thank goodness, he's okay, but she faints. Greta's already been crying for like the last 10 pages. Manager backs up, so he's kind of doing this, and it gets to the point that he literally gets out of there as quickly as he can. So the manager backs up and flees. Not as in bug, flea pun, but is leaving. Runs down the stairs, gets out of that stairwell as quickly as he can. And the only thing that he says when he first sees Gregor is, "Oh," and then gets out of there. So, and then, yeah, father is becoming, we don't know, is it strictly upset because mother has fainted? You know, that, look what you did to your mom, you're in trouble or something like that? Or, you know, is he that he is so, what he sees is so grotesque that he has to react in a certain way, but he takes a cane and he takes the newspaper, rolls it up, and uses that to try to beat Gregor away. And at which point, you know, you're pushing him back into the room. He gets that injury where he gets that scar all going along the side of his body as he's trying to get back in. Ethan?
I mean, I'm not going to say it's unwarranted. I mean, if, like, you're in this situation, you are clamoring to see if, like a loved one is okay, and you open a door and you see something strap the monster mash.
Well, and that's the problem. We don't really know what he sees. You know, there's not that, oh my goodness, Gregor has turned into a bug. There's not that, why is Gregor walking around on all fours? Why is Gregor, like, doing the worm dance and sliding along his...
If he was, like, crawling or, like, at least had, like, this kind of posture to him, there would be no reason that the mother would faint, the manager would book it, and the father would have that sort of reaction.
Agreed. If you have these things going on, something is going on that is going to be amiss. All right? So, for Monday, reading part 2. If you fell a little behind with part 1, now's your chance to catch up. And to be quite honest, you got a pretty good overview of what's going on with part 1 based on discussion that we did. Nice participation. Google Classroom. You go to Google Classroom right now. At the very top is going to be that vocab quiz. You take the vocab quiz, you submit it, you're good to go. You don't have to worry about anything else. I'm sorry. Yeah, notes. Not handouts, but notes for And I did